already done. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. A couple of quick housekeeping things before we start. Restrooms are right through that door. Follow the signs. If you would please put your phones and other electronic devices into worship mode, I would appreciate that. And there will be a reception afterward in the parish hall downstairs. So welcome to First Unitarian Church in New Bedford. I am Reverend Karen LeBlanc, and I minister to this congregation. We gather today to mourn the loss and to celebrate the life of Everett Hoagland, who was a longtime member of this conversation, a man who made New Bedford a hub for poets and who fought for social justice in our community, and who is also a very dear friend of mine. This is what we do for each other, my friends, when a loved one dies. We come together, We share our grief, carry it together so it's a little lighter, tell stories and read poems, to rejoice in a life like Everett's that was so full, and to make sure that we remember and mark it well. It is my honor and my duty as Everett's minister and friend to send him off in style. In this place he loved, surrounded by all of you, the people that loved him. Some of the best lessons I've ever learned as a minister and as a writer, and probably even as a person, happened when I was a young bartender, an extremely literate little artsy white girl with a mohawk. And I got hired at the Blue Moon Cafe. Don't pretend that you don't know where that is. This is the early 90s, and I loved it. I worked there for 4 years, part-time, and that's how I met Everett. And Candida. Don't tell her I told you. Everett introduced himself to me as a poet before giving his credentials, of course, as a professor. And I was, of course, charmed and impressed. As an aspiring poet myself, I didn't know when in my life I would ever start. When somebody said, "So what do you do?" I would proudly say, "I'm a poet." That impressed me. So Everett and I ended up having lots of really deep conversations about poetry, literature, art, and music. And let me tell you, the Blue Moon had the best jukebox ever. But you know what? I was so happy when I did not see Everett at the bar anymore. But by that time, I was involved over at Gallery X over here and had started a monthly poetry reading. And he would show up all the time, sometimes to read, but a lot of times just to listen. He was a firm believer in people showing up for each other, especially poets, supporting each other and giving each other confidence, you know? Over the years, I read Everett many pieces of my own work to get his feedback, which was always honest and critical, but encouraging. One of the last things we talked about was a poem I had sent him to read about my son, and he told me a version of what he often told me about my poetry. "Oh, you don't shy away from being honest and vulnerable, do you? Make sure you leave some mystery, Karen." When I became the minister here, despite the fact that I was quite a bit younger than Everett, he told me how cool he thought it was that he would get to call me and ask me theological questions now. And that immediately validated my position here, which I was still a little iffy about. He made me feel, all right, yes. Just like he said, I am a poet, I could say, I am a minister, and feel good about that. He gave me great commentary on my sermons, of course, telling me that I had a gift for preaching and that it really worked to my advantage that I was so honest and vulnerable, because for sermons, that really works. I appreciated that. A lot of the person, the poet, and the minister I am today is because Everett Hoagland believed in me and encouraged me. His loss hurts, especially for his family, but for all of us. We will miss him so much here in this church and in this community. And I want you all to know that in this church, we don't forget. Everett will be celebrated and remembered in this sanctuary. I will see him right over there in the back row where that gentleman's sitting with those sunglasses on. That's right where Everett used to sit. I'll see him right back there every time I look up. Randy, every time he plays a cool piece of music that he knows Everett would like. He's going to think of Randy. He's going to think of Everett. And his poetry that he shared with us and this whole community will not just be part of our Unitarian services here, but all over the country in Unitarian churches everywhere, because he inspired our whole denomination with his poetry. Future Unitarians will come here to visit, because this is where the great poet Everett Hoagland was a member. And I will proudly say he was my friend. Point out his pew over there, and then I'll sell him one of his books, because that's what he would have wanted. So let's get together, my friends. Come together, hold space for our grief here, balancing our sorrow with gratitude and joy for Everett's life and his work. We're going to hear many of his poems today, but he asked me to read this as the first reading from the Pagan Book of Living and Dying as the opening reading this evening, and it feels like a message, so let's hear it, all right? It's by Starhawk. For all the gifts of life I have received, I give thanks. To the mother who bore me, to the father who seeded me, to the ones who held me, rocked me, nursed me, who fed and taught and nurtured me, to those who played and danced and laughed with me, to those who pleasured me and touched me, to those who challenged me, to those who love me, to those who I shared my life, and to whom I have given life, to each animal and plant, to the sun and moon and stars, to the moving air, the flowing water, to the earth who sustained me and will receive me, I give thanks. Now I make room for something new. Now it is my turn to feed, to nourish, to become soil where roots of strong trees may flourish. Amen, and so may it be, my friends. And now we're going to sing a hymn together. I believe it's hymn number 6. It's in that gray hymnal there. Number 6, yes. So please rise as you are willing and able, and sing with me just as long as I have breath. As long as I have breath, I must answer yes to life. Though with pain I made my way, still with hope I meet each day. If they ask what I did well, tell them I said yes to life. Just as long as vision lasts, I must answer yes to truth. In my dream and in my dark, all as long as my heart beats, I must answer yes to love. Disappointment. Still I kept on loving you. If they ask what I did best, tell them I said yes to love. Please be seated. Our first eulogy this morning is from Martin Espada. We welcome you up to the pulpit, my friend.
Buenas tardes. I'm proud to say that Everett was my dear friend in poetry and justice for more than 25 years. I wrote the foreword for his book Here, New and Selected Poems, where I said, there is a presence in these poems that will not be denied. Everett was a presence, but Everett was also present. He is here now. I've written a sonnet for Everett. It's called Blue in Green, after the song by Miles Davis and Bill Evans. And it quotes a poem by Everett called Kind of Blue. Miles Davis died today. I also mention a reading by Everett at a memorial for our friend Joe Gavea. And here, in my poem, I'm speaking to Everett. Blue in Green, for Everett Hoagland, 1942 to 2025. Close your eyes now. Listen. You hear Miles, blue in green, the muted trumpet drifting notes, delicate as the skin of grapes, hanging overhead like grapes you could pluck from a vine in the sky. When Miles closed his eyes forever, you raised a praise song in your throat for him, the belled horn, but also the nightsticks rattling his head full of songs, a cage of birds screeching till he bled blue notes in handcuffs. Listen, your poem said, for the blue notes and the nightsticks. Tip your ear to the trumpet drifting into the room and see how the bloodstains creep across the shirt. Close your eyes now. Listen. You taught the poets to uncage the words fluttering in their own throats. Even Jogo, biker poet and son of a butcher from the Cape. When he closed his eyes forever, you raised a praise song for him as his sisters and cousins leaned closer to catch the blue notes of every word. Close your eyes now. Listen. This is my praise song for you, as you would have sung if I closed my eyes forever. Close your eyes now. Listen. All the poets are singing for you. Listen. Thank you.
Thank you, Martin. That was lovely, and I encourage you to send that into the UU World magazine. I think they would enjoy that. Lee Blake is our next reader. There she is. Come on up, Lee.
Thank you, Karen, and thank you for all who are here this afternoon. It's an honor for me to share some of my thoughts on the passing of Everett Hoagland. I thank the Hoagland family for hosting this celebration of life that gives us as a community an opportunity to say goodbye and let his family know how important Everett was to so many of us. I met Everett in 1973 as a student at SMU in his African American literature class, a subject area I wanted desperately to know, but never had a black teacher in my whole academic career until I met Everett. Who would know that I would count him as a friend for 52 years? Who would know? At the time, SMU had hired 4 or 5 black professors, and each of them brought their special gifts to our community. Many of those professors moved on following their careers, but Everett stayed and became a member of the New Bedford community. Everett went to our family gatherings. He joined our churches, our community organizations. He mentored our aspiring poets, actors, musicians, social activists, and wrote columns for our local paper when we had one. For over 50 years, he chronicled the history of the city by writing about our heroes and sheroes, using his poetic vision to acquaint folks with our past through his poetry on Paul Cuffey, Frederick Douglass, Frances Ellen Watkins Harper, and other 19th century luminaries whose social activism brought them to New Bedford. Everett mined the memories of our elders, marrying their thoughts and conversations while capturing our community history. I would see him downtown having a cup of coffee with Manny Costa, Charlie Carmo, Jack Custodio, Ray Almeida, my grandfather, Herbert Blake, and Eladon Ponce, getting a good earful on their analysis of the current times and the way New Bedford had managed through the times in the past. These folks are all gone now. But Everett captured their thoughts and gave them back to us in many of his collections of poetry. Everett always had time to meet with students, community leaders, the movers and shakers of our fair city. I was a Black Studies teacher at New Bedford High School in the 70s, along with several other teachers, black teachers. And many times Everett would come to our classes and share his poetic gifts with our students. He worked with the New Bedford Historical Society on many of our projects to highlight and reclaim our black and brown history. As we put our mark on murals and parks across the city where no image of black people had existed before. Our entire community has been enriched by Everett's attention to our local history, social activism, educational pursuits, and perspectives on current events. I will miss him and appreciate this opportunity to share my thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you, Lee. Our next reader is Oliver Franklin. Come on up. And I should have mentioned, if people would like to read down there, if they prefer, you can do that. You don't have to. I know it can be a little intimidating getting up here in the pulpit, so it's up to you. It is a good view.
Can anybody, I'm the son of a minister. I've been in pulpits since I was 9. So I'll take this. Okay? I want to thank you for having me. I've heard so much about this congregation. In October 1962, on the campus of Lincoln University, I heard about a poet who wrote love letters for the illiterates on campus. Lincoln was, at that time, all male and isolated in southern Chester County. It was long before email, and snail mail was the preferred form of romantic communication. So for $1, this guy would write a love poem which you could send to your girl and claim authorship. But when I met Everett, I was surprised by his physical bearings. I always thought of poets as sensitive people with thick glasses and small statures. But here was a sensitive person in an Orson Welles persona and a voice that could fill our college chapel. He was larger than life. His talent and seriousness were recognized immediately. He challenged the English department to teach black writers instead of English romantics. Seriously? The oldest black college with Langston Hughes as an alum didn't teach the Harlem Renaissance? Seriously, that is what he said and wrote. And things changed in the English department. Everett championed the then New Black Arts Movement. Amiri Baraka, Ted Jones, Larry Neal, Sonia Sanchez, and made sure that they visited our campus, including Langston Hughes. He championed new black music, Shep, Coltrane, Abbey Lincoln, Pharaoh Saunders. And most of us didn't have a clue. I have to be honest. He came, we didn't know what he was talking about. We got to it, but we didn't know. But in that professorial voice, he had that voice as a freshman, I want you to know. He patiently explained the music. They are poets of jazz, he'd say. Most important, Everett Hoagland was a practitioner at the highest level of a form of wordplay we at Lincoln University call the rabble. That's the ability to tell a good, ironic story and have an instant, elegant retort. He was the rabble king of his generation, an honorific that earned him great respect. And you've heard him tell stories. You know how well he could do it. He was a true aesthetic warrior, and while working as a recruiter at Lincoln University, fought to keep the college from throwing out Gil Scott-Heron. He went in the dean's office, pounded on his desk. No one ever did that in our generation. Pounded on his desk and said, "Don't throw him out. He's a genius. You'll regret it." They threw him out, and in time, they regretted it. They did give him an honorary degree, though, to show they were sorry. As poetry editor of a college newspaper, he convinced many a man who fancied himself a poet that they were writing simple prose and persuaded them to go into law, not academics or poetry. But Everett and I, along with his best buddy, the late David Clawson, have been close friends since 1963. It was a friendship based on literature, on the culture, and our treasured shared memories of the college experience. I think I have a complete collection of his poetry, including his unpublished novel, King Dust. Yes, based on the king of rabble at Lincoln. The relationship worked for me because Everett kept me focused on what is really, really important. As we grew and changed over time, his commitment to his aesthetic work and his students never wavered. I find myself thinking, as this administration seeks to erase Black history, what would Everett say if he was unleashed on the Trump administration? What poems would he write? He's left a legacy, and new poets must take up the fight for humanity. In Brilliant Corners, a journal of jazz and literature, which may be his last interview, in a discussion about spirituality, here is what he says, quote, "And a friend of mine in my spiritual community," and that means this church, I'll say it again, "as a friend of mine in my spiritual community once said, when the time comes, I'm willingly going into the light." I replied, when the time comes for me, I hope I have my earphones on because I want to go into the music. So my brother, my dear friend, you are now in the music. I love you, God bless you, and thank you all.
Everett Hoagland is next. Amir, come on up.
All right. Unlike the last speaker, I've never been in a pulpit, so this is my first time doing this. So bear with me here. Thank you, everybody, for coming, by the way. Some people know him as Everett Hoagland. Others know him as Professor Hoagland. I just knew him as Uncle Hoagie. As many of the speakers have said and shared today, he was an intelligent, eloquent, and inspirational man. But beyond those qualities that made him respected in academic and literary circles, he was so much more to those of us who knew him personally. I have countless memories, very fond memories of hanging out with my cousins Nia and Ayan at his house. And of course, Uncle Hoagie would always love to drop like a Black history fact on you or like a jazz fact, or sometimes both in the middle of just random things like watching cartoons. So you're just sitting there and he'd be like, "Hey, did you know that Branford Marsalis wrote the soundtrack for it?" And you're like, "I was just watching Darkwing Duck, man. I don't know where this came from." But you really appreciated, you knew what he was saying, it mattered and it was important. And he was telling you it for a reason so that you'd remember it later in life when it really mattered. What a lot of people don't know, though, about Uncle Hoagie is he was really funny. He had a great sense of humor, and he loved to, I would say, disrupt our family photos when we'd get everybody together to take a photo. His favorite line was always, "Everybody say gas." It would elicit a great laugh from everybody here and would lead to very candid family photos. Also, One thing that's legendary about my uncle was his love of food. Uncle Hoagie got his name for the hoagie sandwiches in Philadelphia that he loved so much. And the running joke was, if we were all in Philly at our grandparents' house and someone's like, "Ooh, let's go get some sandwiches," you couldn't let him go by himself because he would go and order a cheesesteak for himself, eat it there, and then bring all of us the rest of our food later. It was just Uncle Hoagie being Uncle Hoagie. One thing, whenever I came back to New Bedford, I would always try to spend some time with him and go just see him. And he always had a new book that he wrote or a poem he'd always want to share with me. And it was always cool to just see him living his passion through the arts and through poetry. One thing I will say is that throughout his life, my uncle dedicated himself to the tireless work of telling stories for people that didn't have a voice, and ensuring that their experiences and contributions weren't forgotten or overlooked. But the thing I think I'll miss about my uncle the most is his smile. It was big, it was warm, it was bright, and it was enough to light up a whole room. The other thing I will always remember about my uncle was he was very proud of his children and his grandchildren, especially Kai and Rylan. He would always tell you something that they were doing or involved in, and he was very, very proud of them, and even proud of me, and he would tell me that, and I'll never forget that. Now, I'm not a poet like my uncle. I do not have a way with words, as you probably can tell right now. I was always better at numbers, but I will leave you with a few words that I think capture who he was. Someone who inspires others is someone we should all aspire to be. Uncle Hoagie was that somebody. He inspired through his scholarship, his humor, his pride in his family, and his commitment to giving a voice to the voiceless. Thank you, Uncle Hoagie, for all the lessons, all the laughter, all of the love. Your legacy lives on in every story that you preserved, every student you taught, every joke you told, every poem you recited, and every person whose life you touched. Thank you very much.
And we have one more eulogy from Phyllis Hoagland Allen. Phyllis?
Okay, now I can read it. Okay. My name is Phyllis Hoagland Allen. Everett Hoagland III was my big brother and was 4 years older than I am. We called him Hoagie. He looked after us when we moved to our home in the Eastwick section of Philadelphia. One day, he decided to give me a ride in an old baby carriage in the basement of our home. I don't remember it clearly, but he was pushing me very fast in this old baby carriage. And eventually the carriage overturned. I fell out, and my mother on the second floor said that she heard my head hit the concrete floor in the basement. I seemed to have no adverse side effects, so we didn't go to the emergency room to see if I had a concussion or anything else. But I will tell you, I do have a dent in the middle of my forehead that was developed as a result of this fall. His version of the outcome was that he probably raised my IQ by 30 to 40 points, and I would be so grateful later on in life. Another reason that he was just so good to me, I had severe asthma as a child, and I would have these asthma attacks. And after an attack, he would come and sit on my bed and make me laugh, even though I was wheezing and having trouble breathing. I loved him for making me forget my illness. I found this short poem by Langston Hughes that reminded me so much of Hoagie's thoughts and what he thought about people and our people that I just want to read it to you all. The night is beautiful, so are the faces of my people. The stars are beautiful, so are the eyes of my people. Beautiful also is the sun. Beautiful also are the souls of my people. We loved him very much. He had this way of making me laugh in an embarrassed way when we had family gatherings, and I would be seated next to my great-grandmother who was eating her boiled chicken feet, and I'm there in horror, and he's across the table saying. So he was a little devilish, but he did it. He loved to make people laugh, and he was a good big brother. So I appreciate you coming here. And I tell people say, I'm sorry for your loss. I say to people, he lived the life he wanted. And he was very happy with his life. And he knew that, he told me he knew the end was near, and he said, and I accept that. And I've enjoyed this ride through life. So thank you.
And we will have a musical interlude. We welcome Megan Koch on cello with Bach's Cello Suite No. 1 in G major. Our first reading and remarks and recitations from my good friend Eric Andrade, who is no stranger to this pulpit. Come on up, my friend. Happy to have you.
I just want to send my love to the family for the gift of Everett. It was a beautiful gift in my life and so many people's lives, and his pride in his grandsons in particular was something that he spoke about a lot, but his children are something that his greatest poems are the living embodiment of who you are and who you choose to be. When I first met Everett, to be honest with you, I was intimidated by him, and I was a freshman in 1995 at UMass Dartmouth, and having not had African American studies classes, it was a blessing to have so many classes. Not that there was a lot, but compared to where I was coming from, there was plenty. And everybody was going to this class, and all the girls I liked were going to that class, so I followed suit. And he was a serious man. He didn't play that. If you weren't in the class, you gotta be out. You gotta be registered for the class. So he let some of the students know, and I kind of got scared of him because his voice and his demeanor was so serious. And then on October 16th, I was leaving a party at the campus center, and I was at 2 o'clock in the morning invited to go to that Million Man March. And we traveled to DC, and it was a busload of students and folks from New Bedford that went. And I remember on the bus ride back, some of the language on the bus from us young folks was not up to code. And like a real relative, he checked us as our grandparents would have checked us. That level of concern for how we were behaving and how that reflected on us was something that he took personal. And he had me a little bit more nervous of him, to be honest with you. And it wasn't until after I graduated in 2003, I discovered writing in '01, and I started organizing around the Iraq War, and a good comrade of his, Jose Soler, would help me organize some rallies and events, and we were organizing a poetry reading at the Frederick Douglass Unity House, and he came with Jose. And after I read, he took me outside where Jose was like, "I told you, brother, I told you." And Everett spoke life into me. And that's something that he didn't just do with me, he did it with so many folks, everyday folks throughout the city, whether it was folks that were working as staff at the university or folks that he met in a local coffee shop or a local establishment. He spoke life into us, and he advised me the importance of what I was doing, and that what I was doing, I needed to see beyond this area, that I was national level. I didn't see that at that time because I was young, and to speak that much life into somebody and to have accomplished that much, for us that had the blessing of having a relationship with somebody that achieved so much greatness, but then saw greatness in us, that's something that's really a powerful thing. So I'm deeply indebted to him. When I stopped writing poetry due to emotional state, reality, fatherhood, living in Florida, he would send snail mail to me. And poems, and he would write me, and then he would call, and he called my daughter's mother and was saying how important it was as a griot for me to be a poet and not to give up. And I told him I had quit, and I wasn't a poet. I ended up coming back to New Bedford, and he started organizing poet lunches, and I'm like, "I'm not a poet, I'll go, I wanna have company with you, but don't call me a poet." And he kept referring to me as a poet. And I would get so angry and so upset. And then one day he invited me to UMass for a good friend of his, Sonia Sanchez, was coming. And he wanted me to go, so I agreed to go. And when I got there, he was like, "I want to introduce you." So I'm like, "Do not call me a poet when you do that." And sure enough, he told her, "Hey, Eric's an amazing poet." And she put her hand on me and she said, "Sweetheart, would you mind opening up and reading a poem for me?" And I hadn't read poetry probably in 3 or 4 years at that time, and it got me to stop writing again. So he reinvigorated me, and what he told me was that poets, griots, is a spiritual gift, and that we have to exercise it, and he was concerned about my well-being. And I think that speaks to the volumes of who he was as a person, that he was always invested, not just in himself, but so many folks in our community. So I wrote a piece to him for his birthday in 2021, and he asked me after reading it that one day if he passed, he wanted me to share it. I did edit it a little bit, and it's a little sloppy. He was such a craftsman The other thing I have to say before reading this is that I don't know anybody that I knew personally that tried so hard to stay alive. The efforts he made to stay alive and the dedication he had to writing, to his craft, to what was going on in the world was so intense that even in the hospital, he was writing drafts of poetry 6 times over, waking up in the middle of the night and rewriting and reading and talking about what was going on in the world today. And in order for him to do what he did in his life with his diabetes and to live the length of life he lived, it was a sheer effort that I could not imagine doing. So I just think that's a beautiful thing about him, his will to be alive. Forever it eludes me, the words to prove the gratitude that move we. Our moods be mused by moves you made and foundations you laid in the ways of the music. So much more than just words, as ocean voices are heard playing here in this black velvet city, along the long shores and gritty long walls for justice, written on scrimshaw sea. Forever it seems we try to write word that deserve this wordsmith that lives the afterlife of words with intention. Forever it is worthy to mention you encourage us all to seek ascension to our highest ideal. Forever it feels like a lesson and blessing to learn from this sage, wise with age. Forever inspiring other poets to put pen to page, encouraging them to break free the bird as words bend the cage, and then engage souls to sing songs of rage with psalms of balm as spiritual slave mourners to indigo blues as ink bleed to page of poetry. Forever, with gratitude for Everett for showing the path of being committed to craft, to humanity, and always giving back, liberating others to question, to ask, to search for truth, to respect and look back at roots while also giving flowers and fruit to the youth. You griot like Morpheus to Neo, we offer our love at the altar of your ego, acknowledging you raised us all to be better and see all as royal and regal, yet so humble and honest enough to see all people as equal, perfectly imperfect, stardust from space, constantly evolving, worthy of grace. Your greatest poems live in the homes of our heart. Poetry professor my fault. Everett, you made brotherhood a part of your art. Please. Yeah, I'm gonna miss him. It's a blessing to have someone like that, just constantly evolving. This piece I'm gonna read is called The Pilgrim. This is from his book, Here, New and Selected Poems. It was dedicated to this church, and I think there's a reference within it. Up from the bottom, the basin up. From the 400 feet deep, great glassy lake, unlocked by seaway, away from the dark water's reflection of my face, by way of pseudopodia, across the plain above the pebbled shore, up the dawnlit uplands, wild star-flowered, allotted acres, cast lots by dewlight, over the overgrown field, stone fence, chinked with chipmunks, past the past antique, white shotgun houses, past caroling robins up in the gnarled barren branches of the old garden's blistered apple tree, just to be hard-bitten by Big June breeding, protein-needing, black Adirondack black flies, blood flies, but somehow, by some way, upstanding, straight back, sure-footed in the solving stream of noon, sun beaming down all around, the slop length of hard-won clearing, slowly ascending the low, shadowed pediment up into the clearer air, through the last stand of old-growth pine, to sit atop a glacier cleft escarpment, long gone Indian's tongue, termed split rock, its degenerating boulder base surrounded by crumbling stones, inspirited still, looking up, staring into, searching the starry night sky as one searches her new baby's face, as nursing babies take in their mama's faces, up there, out there, where all above, all that below, and I began. From here on the mountain peak, the lakes look like great rain-filled footprints of God. I turn around and see the other's track merge with mine. I return to staring up at the end. Less time, less thing. One of the ones all of us stare at. Ocean, great lake, campfire, hot fire, mountain, Milky Way, our newborn's face, searching, sensing, seeing, hearing the spiritual, and from what, from where, and how we have come to be.
We're going to have Ricardo Rosa next.
Greetings. I had the tremendous honor of sharing lunch with Everett, Brother Jose Soler, John Rice, Bruce Rose, and the late Thomas Renuga, and Eric Andrade. And I will certainly miss the space and the wisdom and the laughter that Everett brought to the space. Eric mentioned how much effort he put into his craft. You know, every email, every text that Everett sent, you could just, you know, the presence of mind was always present, you know, and you had to really reflect deeply to respond to his text in his emails, because that's what he demanded, you know. Everett was fully present at every moment. His very life is instructive to us all. May we all fall in love with being alive and living a life fully alert to the present and all that is around us. May we all engage in struggles for justice and realize that our freedom is intimately tied to the freedom of others. I'm not going to say more because I was scheduled to read, and I am reading a poem titled Stardust by the Nicaraguan poet Ernesto Cardenal. What's in a star? We are. All the elements of our body and of the planet were once in the belly of a star. We are stardust. 15 billion years ago, we were a mass of hydrogen floating in space, turning slowly, dancing. And the gas condensed more and more, gaining increasingly more mass. And mass became star and began to shine. As they condensed, they grew hot and bright. Gravitation produced thermal energy, light and heat. That is to say, love. Stars were born, grew, and died. And the galaxy was taking the shape of a flower, the way it looks now on a starry night. Our flesh and our bones come from other stars, and perhaps even from other galaxies. We are universal, and after death, we will help to form other stars and other galaxies. We come from the stars, and to them we shall return.
Our next remarks is Julian Juan.
I had the pleasure of meeting Professor Hoagland in the summer of '99 at Upward Bound, where I took a class my senior year, going into my senior year of high school. And that class literally changed my life, the way I looked at academics, and I've forever been grateful for having him in my life. I'm gonna read a poem today called Dust. We are dust. Rock is the placenta of time, but rock can be shattered. You cannot break dust. It defies the hammer. Chisels cannot carve up. On it, its stuff will not. Make good statues of your heroes. Heroes are made of it. Blown up, explosives never destroy it. It cannot be slung or thrown. Primitive, but it can kill you.
Show the people your shirt. Right? That's how sweet. How sweet is that? Rylan Roderick, Everett's grandson. Come on up, my friend.
It's 2005, and I'm 5 years old. My eyes are closed for concentration's sake as I try to recall the poem you assigned me to recite. Open your eyes, son. Look at your audience, you say. I open my eyes, and I'm greeted with your ear-to-ear smile as I successfully recite Langston Hughes' poem, Dreams. It's 2006, and I'm 6 years old. You take me to Martha's Vineyard for the first time. I'm holding your hand, walking along Inkwell Beach, and we're collecting sea glass in our pockets as you teach me about the Middle Passage, sperm whales, and beach rows. Later that year, on our routine walks around Fort Taber, you advise that it's time for me to ditch the training wheels and learn how to ride a bike. You set me up at the top of the hill, assuring that it's best to practice with gravity on your side. However, you did not teach me how to use handlebar brakes and have to run full speed before I go into the Fort Taber Street. We spend the rest of the afternoon on the bench by the water, watching cormorants dive for food and trying to guess where their heads will pop up. It's 2009, and I'm 9 years old. I'm staying at your house so that you can teach me how to tie a tie in preparation for my middle school uniform. Later that evening, a thunderstorm makes its way to the south coast. Instead of bunkering down, you tell me to put on my rain jacket and my boots, and we head for the door. We spend hours parked in the lot of Davy's locker, watching high tides waves crash against the car windshield. It's 2013, and I'm 13 years old. I'm graduating middle school, and you are the guest speaker at the ceremony. You deliver a motivating speech that captures the attention of the entire audience, including a gaggle of teenage boys, which was not easy for most to do. 4 years later, I'm 17 years old. I'm walking out of the gymnasium onto the field with my high school graduating class. The sounds of families and friends cheering and clapping overwhelm the room, but I make out your deep voice saying, "Hi, Rye," as you wave and give a proud smile. It's 2023, and I'm 23 years old. I had recently graduated PA school, which you had attended virtually. I passed my board exam and accepted a job at Stanford Hospital in cardiology. Days before I leave for California, we grab coffee, and you share stories about the international travels you did at my age. We hug farewell, and you tell me, "The world is not just your oyster. The world is yours." It's July 5th, 2025, and I'm 25 years old. I spend the afternoon holding your hand as Duke Ellington plays, surrounded by family during your final moments. Fast forward to 2065. I'm 65 years old. I sit on the sand watching my own grandchild playfully play at the ocean's edge. And as time weathers down my mind, I fear that I can no longer recall the sound of your voice. I roll up the cuffs of my jeans and walk into the sea. I grab a conch shell and hold it fast to my ear. The echoes of the ocean waves ebbing and flowing reminds me of your voice that roared throughout the harbor. And one day, I'll take my last breath that's carried by the wind into the salty sea mist, and I will give back to the planet as you did, meeting once more at the shore, as grains of sand broken down and down over and over again, as tidal foam that sails along the bluffs, and once again as cosmic dust. I'll be reading his poem once more at the shore. The day night was born. We searched for time in sea-smooth fragments of blue, green, brown bottles, glass cleared of gloss, made of man and woman-made fire and sand, made from stone, made from rock, made from cosmic dust. We fringed the lips of undertow with footprints the waves redeem from the firm, wet shore. We gathered and gave each other milk-white moonstones, aeons old obsidian, and pebbles translucent as sucked rock candy, and rolled up our jeans into the raw, salty mist. The sun sank into a violet-lipped quahog, and grit-edged night opened like a mussel. Under lacquered, pearly black light of moonrise, we crossed over a sandbar into campground by duned, scrub, beach rows. The night day was born. We turned around and found no footprints. Thank you.
Great job, Ryan. Our final remarks are from Kamal Hoagland. There he is.
So my nephew did me dirty. I didn't know he was that kind of writer or performer. You know what I mean? And he sets me up to be right after him. So my remarks are brief. He was Professor Hoagland. He was Everett Hoagland III. But he was my dad. Like, that was my dad, right? A couple of people in here know what I'm talking about. I'm not from here. I'm from Philadelphia. I would be up here in the summers, and we would walk Purchase Street or County Street, and people would stop him, and, oh, Professor Hoagland, or Everett, this is your son? Oh my God, hey, did you know your dad did this and did that? And it was like this mountain of a man with the booming voice, the smartest dude and the funniest dude I've ever met, was also a somebody, like famous. People like him, people know him across the world. It's a bug out, and it's big shoes to fill, big shoes to fill. I loved him. I got his rings on today. I got his bracelet on today. I got his bearing, and I got his face. So, love you, Pop. Hopefully, you don't have notes on how I'm about to read this. I'll be reading Invocation by Everett Hoagland. Architect of icebergs, snowflakes, crystals, rainbows, sand grains, dust motes, atoms. Mason whose tools are glaciers, rain, rivers, ocean. Chemist who made blood of seawater, bone of minerals and stone, milk of love. Whatever you are, I know this, spinner, you are everywhere. In all the ever-changing above, whirling around us. Yes, in the loose strands, in the rough weave of the common cloth threaded with our DNA, on the hubbed, spoked, spinning wheel that is this world, solar system, galaxy, universe. Help us to see ourselves in all creation in ourselves, ourselves in one another, Remind those of us who like connections made with similes, metaphors, symbols. All of us are. Everything is already connected. Remind us, as oceans go, so go we. As the air goes, so go we. As other life forms on earth go, so go we. As our planet goes, so go we. Great poet who inspired, "In the beginning was the Word." Edit our thoughts so our ethics are our politics, and our actions the afterlife of our words. Thank you.
That was lovely. Everett was kind enough to read that poem at my ordination. Made the day for me. Well, thank you all for being here today to carry our grief together, to support each other, and for sharing so many wonderful stories of encouragement and delight that Everett brought to us. He will be missed by so many, but his words will live on, and those he inspired will carry his legacy into the future. The courage of the early morning's dawning, the strength of the eternal hills, the peace of the evening's ending, and the love of life be in our hearts today and always. Amen. Please join us after for a little reception downstairs, but first we've got a little bit more music, and we're going to have Candida sing a song that Everett loved. It was his favorite song that she had written, and she first sung it for him right here in this sanctuary. So we are going to hear Love Our Way Through, Candida Rose.
In a world so filled with chaos, when all our hope seems lost, there are treasures we must hold on to, no matter what the cost. Compassion, kindness, and empathy
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for coming. Thank you to our music director, Randy Fayen, Megan Koch on cello, Candida Rose on her lovely voice, our administrator, Jessica, for helping us with the elevator today, and thank you all for being here. Now let's get out of the heat and go eat.
Yes,